You are now listening to the OK Zoomer podcast by Ethan Castro.
All right, everyone, it's Ethan here. I'm pre-recording this for the sake of my guest performance. So here we have
Farah, Osman. Hi guys. I just came back from my run, so I look disgusting, but it's alright.
Farah goes to the same prestigious high school that I go to, and she may or may not have a higher average than me and a higher SAT
No one knows.
and more impressive stats, but
Definitely.
you never know. So we're going to ask her questions from the point of view of Farah, the successful student, successful runner, a very beautiful girl,
Aw,
plus
thank you.
Gen Z. All right, so the first one's going to be, what are your top 3 interests?
Well, from a holistic perspective, I think my top 3 interests would probably be renewable energy, definitely something that I'd like to go into. Interest is just like knowing about people and how people think. I thought that was like, from when I was very young, I thought that was very interesting. And also, just like fashion. I know I'm like the last person to talk about fashion because I'm literally,
Show
I
your
dress
bag.
like a dad, but I got this bag and I'm very excited for it. But yeah, fashion always interested me.
All right, so I would assume STEM over English.
Actually, I feel like especially once I got into tech, I've had really good English teachers. I had Mr. Lederer, Mr. Capozzi last year, and now this year Mr. Harris. So I've always had, in middle school, I had wonderful experiences with English and research teachers. So I never thought I would be an English person, especially with my sister. She was always a STEM girl. But I realized that, yes, I really do love literature, and I just got a book about Shakespeare, so I'm super excited for that. And I think that it's like an equal balance.
Yeah, I would say the same. Before I was more STEM, and I was the math kid. I could do 2 plus 2 really fast. And then when I got into Brooklyn Tech, I got a little bit of a cognitive dissonance. And I was like, oh, I'm no longer the kid that could do math really fast. And so I had to find other interests. And in the beginning, reading wasn't one of them, but now it is. And so I'll talk less about myself now. And so a few questions. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
I think people would think that I'm an extrovert, but
I
I
would
could be
think so.
introverted at times.
Would you rather be the face of an initiative or behind the scenes?
Oh, definitely the face. Come on. I'm just kidding.
Upbeat or laid back?
Upbeat or laid back? When I got into high school, I wanted to be that cool, laid back girl. Like, she's chill and she's super awesome, but I'm definitely more, you know what I'm saying? I'm more upbeat, I think.
Yeah, I would see that.
I listen to Lizzo, so.
I don't know how much that's contributed, but all right. How has remote learning been for you? Unfiltered answer, so no cliche answers.
Remote learning, it's definitely been an experience. I feel like going into high school, I thought that it was good. It's weird because you're a junior now and you've been in-person school. It's hard to compare it to online learning. I think it just creates more of just from a social perspective, you realize that you have like a certain friend group and people that you really want to see every single day. And so sometimes it's annoying to like have to deal with people that you don't really like seeing on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's an upside of online learning, is that you don't have to interact with that and be forced into those situations. But also there's nothing better than being in a classroom with people. There really isn't.
I would also say it helps you realize that school's not only school. School is mainly what it's not tangibly, so it's more social, and it's more the lessons you learn observing things rather than the pre-calculus you learn in class.
Definitely, and the interactions with people, you grow so much as a person just with these day-to-day interactions. And you have a well-rounded personality. That's why I feel bad for the freshmen.
Yeah, I feel bad for the freshmen as well because apparently I was only in school half the time, but I played different sports and stuff, so it felt like forever.
Yeah.
How does it feel for you?
No, definitely. If I recount my freshman year of running cross country, I was injured, by the way, indoor track and outdoor track, then it's a lifetime. I remember thinking to myself every month into high school, I was like, if I stop here, if I quit now, I'll have enough high school memories to last me a lifetime. And then sophomore year hit, and it's just memory after memory after memory. Now it's been a year, and I have nothing to show for it, so it's kind of unfair.
I'm not very emotional, but the emotions I felt from wrestling and football were so much, and rugby and powerlifting and everything else, that it felt like so many things happened relative to other kids and relative to what I thought would have happened.
Yeah.
And so we could go on to the next one. And so many kids would probably ask you this, but how do you keep your mental health good, per se?
Well, oh, this is a good question. I mean, a lot of people would say maybe just like take Fridays as movie nights and watch TikToks and do something good and go out with your friends. But I feel like the most important thing is to realize that I've always been the type of person to be really affected by what other people think of me, especially like the people that I hold very dear to myself. And maybe sometimes when you realize that they have bad impressions of you or they don't really like you, I don't know, it's weird. That can take a toll on your mental health. So I think that to keep your mental health well or good, you have to focus on yourself and realize that you've been doing everything that you needed to do. And you are a wonderful person, no matter whatever anyone thinks of you. And some people are just going to have problems with you regardless, and you can't really change that. So just think about yourself. You know, my dad always says, be strong in who you are.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone else's opinion affect you, because that's just going to destroy and make you deteriorate mentally faster, and that's not good.
So if you're having like a wave of sadness, would you remind yourself of a mantra? Would you drink something? Would you lay down?
A wave of
Would you watch a video?
No. Okay, so this is what I do. Run is definitely a part of it, but I would say the best thing that you could do is get a really like good playlist on Spotify. Get like an upbeat, happy playlist. Just go down next to Shore Road. Walk right down next to the water.
Everybody go to Shore Road.
Yeah, everyone go to Shore Road. You could look at the expanse of the ocean, of the Hudson, and you could think like, wow, everything that this person just said or this test that I just failed, it's not going to matter in the future. You have a good group of friends. Get on FaceTime with one of your friends. Go get on a call. I like to like put music on in my ears and then listen to the lyrics and pretend I'm on a phone call with someone just restating the lyrics of the song. I did it to Madison Beer's Selfish. Embarrassing. If you see me screaming like on Shore Road, just pretend you don't know me, but it's really fun. Just be strong with yourself and have a good time. Listen to stuff that makes you happy and talk to people that make you happy.
Yeah, I would say that as well. And I know the typical thing is to embrace it.
Yeah.
And listen to sad songs, but I don't know how effective that is.
Don't be like the boys that are like, oh, I'm in my bag. It's so annoying. They put their hoods on after. Okay, sorry.
Tighten it.
Yeah, put the hoods on. They tighten it. They put like All Girls Are the Same, that song, or they play I Still See the Shadow, Lucid Dreams. No, don't listen to Lucid Dreams, because one, you're fine. Two, you'll get over it. Put some upbeat music on. Put Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. Banger.
Great suggestion. And something I do, well, I think about it, but you could do it if you want to see it tangible. You could go on Google Earth and keep zooming out from where you are, and you realize nothing really matters. But I know a lot of you guys are smart, and I know a lot of intelligent people tend to stray towards nihilism. So don't become nihilistic and like nothing matters. I'm not going to do anything.
Is that what nihilism is?
Yeah.
Nothing matters.
Like, oh, everyone's going to forget me anyway.
Oh, don't say that.
And so just use it for your benefit. I know it's hard because usually when you implement something, it works in the negative and the positive. But you could keep it condensed and keep it in locked up only to use it at a certain time. That's good, because I know a lot of kids who use it all the time. Like, oh, that's pointless. I'm not going to help this person. That's pointless. Well, this is too hard. That's pointless.
Definitely. And you see that a lot on, like, I just followed the Brooklyn Tech Confessions page, and I see a lot of that on there. I'm like, no matter what your situation is in life now, you have to always push towards improving and progression. You can't just lock yourself in this place. And I wish we knew the people that wrote those posts. You could help them. It's sad, but
we probably do know the person. It's just they probably don't share, or maybe we probably don't ask.
Yeah.
Not you, but just overall.
No, definitely.
All right. So if people didn't know, so Farah just recently joined social media. Well, the main social medias, whether it be Instagram, whatever it is. Do you think that's contributed to how you are as a person, different relative to everyone else?
I thought it would have a stronger impact on who I was, because from the start, I was very adamant in my belief. I was like, I'm not going to get this until I get into college. And then I'd be like, because it's going to take up too much of my time.
Yeah.
But I feel like it really is a community. You could choose at the end of the day who you want to follow, who you don't want to follow. Follow Selena Gomez, by the way. She's a great person to follow. But I didn't think it really affected me that much. I feel like I don't really mind what I put. You know what I post.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just pictures that I think I like that make me happy. And I thought that I would be more affected by like, oh, these girls, they're always doing stuff together, and I don't have like, we don't take good pictures. We're not on yachts, or we don't go on beach. We don't go to beaches together. But then you realize it's like, we like see each other every day. We run together. We have a great time. So it doesn't really matter. You just have to be firm in who you are and firm in yourself, and you wouldn't be fazed by anything that anyone else is doing. And TikTok is so much fun, by the way. I got that too, and I thought I would be like more addicted, but I'm really not. It just makes you so happy when you see stuff that's funny.
Yeah, I'd say you're not addicted partially because a lot of kids, when they start to get addicted, they cultivate an addictive personality, and so they start getting addicted to this app and this app. So if you never got it to begin with, you're starting off on a good foot.
Definitely, yeah.
Not that you have no control over it, but and TikTok, I have different opinions on it.
Oh, really?
My feed would usually be not so good stuff, and then some of the stuff I don't think.
Do you get Bryce Hall?
No, but even when I wasn't signed in, let's just say there'd be inappropriate recommended content, and I don't think that's good for someone who's 16 or 15 or 14. Very vulnerable. Are you finding? Okay. What do you plan to major in while in college?
In college, I think I'm going to major in chemical engineering and minor in sociology. I'll get the half English, half STEM sort of thing.
Very impressive. What is your sister majoring?
She's majoring in cell biology, and she's on the pre-med track. So.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
You want to share what high school she went to?
She went to Stuyvesant. I feel like with my sister, it's so funny because she was always into biology. From the 7th grade. Her 7th grade biology teacher was incredible. I had the same one. We went to the same middle school, but it was great. And she always had this really strong passion for biology. So obviously, I liked it too. I'm the type to like anything that's given towards me. I'll create a passion for something. You know what I'm saying? But she was just so good at it. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing medicine, biology, or I'm going to be a doctor because she's already too good at that. So I was like, I'm going to do chemistry. Oh, and she really did not like physics. So I'm like, I'm going to do physics too. So that's what motivated me toward chemistry at the start. But then you realize that it's actually a very interesting subject. So I learned to love it as I went on.
What would you say to someone that can't find a passion or has the narrative that it'll come to them and they'll feel it when it comes to them? Try new things, force yourself to go a little more into it. What would you say?
Don't pressure yourself. Don't think that I have to know from now. I would definitely say try new things, but also you have to give everything a real chance. You can't just, even like, let's say Shakespeare, let's say you were never an English person. Maybe you weren't an English person because you haven't found an author that you could really connect with yet. So I would say give everything a real chance and give it a shot. And go on YouTube and you could see a lot of pre-recorded lectures from many different universities, and that gives you a real taste of what the profession is like. So don't be discouraged at all. I say that I might be a chemical engineer, but I might just do public health. I don't really care.
Both of those are very impressive relative to what other people would think. So let's go into more niche questions. What would you tell yourself 5 years ago, or what would you tell someone in 6th grade?
5 years ago, 6th grade?
It's like 7th grade.
6th. Okay. What was I thinking around that time? I was very, I don't know. I forgot how I was in like the 6th grade, but I would definitely tell, oh my God. I was very embarrassing in the 6th grade. I would say like, bro, no, that's not even embarrassing. I would just say weird stuff. But I would tell myself not to be concerned about what, I wasn't really concerned about what people think. I had a very big problem about grades and schoolwork. I'd go into every single test in middle school ready to cry. If I didn't know an answer to one question, it would ruin the entire aura, for, like the vibe of the test for me. And it's just this constant, like, I hate to say that I was a perfectionist because you could see other areas in my life, like in dance, I was never really good at that, and I wasn't really passionate about that, so I didn't really try to push myself in that. But with school, it was always like I have to be on top. You know what I'm saying? So I would just stress myself out every single test, tears after. I'd be like, I think I failed, and then the score wouldn't be that bad in the end. And I feel so bad about myself because I'd study hard, and then people who didn't study would end up getting higher grades than me. I think it's something I learned very recently. Freshman year, I was like that too.
How did you learn?
I told myself it was online learning, definitely. I was like, when I started, AP World History. Yep, that's what taught me. I go in, Dr. Jeremy, most incredible teacher. She just knew everything about everything. I go into her class, studied for this one SAQ. Oh, it was one experience. Studied for this one SAQ so hard. She gave us, I believe, the prompts the day before. So I wrote out everything what I was going to write or something like that. Then she gave us a selection of prompts. So I could have easily just chose the prompt that I prepared for and written about it. But there was one source that was new and I didn't know how to use it. So I did another prompt that I wasn't prepared for. The scores come out and I get a 1 out of 3 on the SAQ, a 33% in my Google Pack. And I remember I would come out of the class and my friend Michelle, she would be waiting outside for me. And then I would come out and I was like, Michelle, I just failed. Like, I did not do well on that test. And she was like, you know what? Don't worry. In the grand scheme of things, it won't matter. She said something very nice to me and it just stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? I have to relax. I know myself. I know that I work hard and you can always pick yourself up after that. And then this year, just a lot of, sometimes it's like, I had a lot of things to do, so I had to submit, like, let's say my English homework a day late or something. Yes, I got the 10 points off, but you know what? I was not going to risk all that. Like, you know, I work hard, and I know that I'd rather submit something that's perfect, that's better, than submitting it, like, BS work on time. So I knew that in the end it would help me, but I don't really care about the number anymore, which is something me from 5 years ago would have cried at the thought of me being like this, but it's definitely an experience and it takes time to get used to.
And with that being said, I know a lot of people have issues with this, whether it's social anxiety or whatever. If you did nothing wrong, you shouldn't really feel bad. I know, like, a teacher will be yelling at you, even though it's not your fault. I know it's hard to stay stoic per se, but try at least. And if you know you had a really good reason not to do a certain homework and your teacher's being annoying, advocate for yourself. I know everybody talks about advocating for this and for that, but you should come first in your own life.
And you come to realize that teachers are very understanding. I was injured for 5 weeks this year with plantar fasciitis in my foot. Most depressing period. It started February 21st. I was very upset. Because running makes me happy. Like, genuinely. It's a very good relief and a stress relief. And I just found myself, like, trapped into this, like, I was so upset. And then I'd lose passion for everything, because when something in my life is not going exactly according to plan, I'd be very discouraged. You tell your teachers, you talk to them about it, and you realize that they're very compassionate and they feel for you.
Yeah. Well, that's what my advice to teachers was too. Help the students be transparent, but not too transparent that they become your friend almost, because then there's no accountability. So be transparent to the point in which they know you're human, but at the same time, like, to the point in which they're your friend, to the extent in which they feel being accountable to you. So they'll do the homework out of the sake of the relationship you guys have. Not a weird relationship, but a little more than a teacher-student relationship. And you see it with the teachers that try to separate too much. The kids just feel like this is just tedious, this teacher doesn't care. And I know one of my teachers, I'm not going to say which one it was, she was giving advice to a student teacher and said, their emotions doesn't matter, just make sure they get the work done. And I was like, it was pretty interesting to see that point inside of her. And I don't hold it against her, but it's just interesting to think how many other teachers feel the same way. Not that it makes me hate them, but it makes me realize, like, okay, I can't kill myself for this assignment, because do they really care at the end of the day? I know this is not to say don't submit any of your assignments.
Oh, definitely not. You should do your homework.
I know a lot of kids get that. Whenever I like to generalize a lot because it helps me, rather than saying, unless your name is Juan and this is your conditions. So whatever it is, so take my generalizations with a grain of salt. And so what advice would you give yourself beginning of 9th grade?
Oh, beginning of 9th grade?
Walking into big Brooklyn Tech.
First of all, I was very high pitched in ninth grade. I'd be like, "Hi guys!" Like my voice was like very high pitched. So I'd say just cool down a little bit, and also you don't have to like. I think ninth grade me. I was trying to get everyone to like me. I was really trying hard. I was like, no one can hate me. No one can hate me. Everyone has to love me. Not everyone loves me. Something
Did they
you
like
learn.
you more when you started caring less?
Not caring less. It's just,
Less
I feel
attention.
like maybe. I feel like people perceive it as like you're almost being fake if you're too nice. You know what I'm saying? There's like, oh, you're just doing this for show. And I think that if you're genuinely a good person, then they'll know that you're a good person. If you don't have to force it onto anyone. Don't be pressured into trying to make everyone like you, because it's not going to work. It's not going to work, and it's not worth. No, my sister told me, no one deserves to occupy your mind.
Yeah.
If they don't like you, then it's fine. You know yourself. You know you are a good person. Seriously, if you're like me, you know you're a good person. You know you're a good person, and that no one deserves to occupy your mind. And you are beautiful and smart, no matter whatever you do. And people are not going to like you, and it's their fault.
I know this quote, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the gist of it is, whoever controls your emotions is like your master. And so if these kids that don't want to be your friend controls your emotions, like it makes you sad every time you're near them, you have to think like, oh, okay, I'm in control. And I know a lot of kids are like, oh, but I know some people say your emotions are in your control and the other people disagree. But to go on a little bit of a tangent, I'd like to add that they have an influence over your emotions, and it's a matter of strengthening, I guess, your wall of emotional permutation, whatever
Yeah.
it may be, permeability. And so I know a lot of people get influenced by what this person says or what this person thinks of them. And so it's a matter of building up your mental toughness or mental fitness to the point in which you know your value. And that maybe Farah used to walk in a room and compare herself, but now she doesn't compare herself anymore because she knows, I got this. Well, that's also the good thing about tangible accomplishments. You're like, I got this on my SAT. You
Yeah.
can't take that away from me. I got this, I got this, I got this. So I know I go off on a lot of tangents, but
No, it
I hope
gives
you
you
guys
some-
get the gist of it.
Definitely. I was such a comparer. I'd be like, oh, her, him, they're so much like they're going to get into college. I'm not. But you have to think about yourself. You know your self-worth, and always walk into a room with your shoulders up high. I was always a sloucher, and I think that's what made me like sort of like, I'm scared about everyone, but you can't. You have to be confident and take a deep breath and know your self-worth. You're strong. You got this.
What advice would you give? What advice do you think college freshman Farah would give you right at this moment?
Don't pretend to be someone you're not. I feel like if I was a college freshman,
What would you tell yourself right now? So what would 18-year-old Farah tell you right now?
that's a very good question.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
I would say be more consistent, because I'm good at starting things. I'm not very good at being consistent with it, even if it's going perfectly well. Like this podcast, my last episode was a little bit longer ago than it should have been, and everything was going well. I was getting views, I was getting messages thanking me for doing it. But other than that, I lose motivation. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and that's where the discipline comes in. Even when your motivation's low, if you have the discipline, and then even when you know you're gonna have fun with something, just the fact that it takes any willpower to start it sometimes stops people from doing it. Like the podcast, I know I'm gonna have fun. It's just sometimes it takes me a long time to get a guest when really all I'm doing is stalling, because I don't really want that responsibility of talking with a camera on, whatever it is. It also helps to really talk about your issues too, because you're like, it seems a little sillier in that sense, and it helps you really understand it and find the solution.
Definitely.
So what would 18-year-old Farah going into whichever college, I'm not going to name any, I'll tell you right now.
Probably that. Just keep your head held high. Work hard. Power through it. Keep the people that you like the most closest to you, because those people are never going to leave your life. And that, yes, you are an intellectual. You work hard. Don't think that you're stupid or dumb just because of like a test or anything. You know yourself. No, know yourself, and you know I like to put on like, oh, I come into a room like, oh, here comes Farah, the intellectual. Here comes Farah, the fun person, even though I'm not that one. Here comes Farah, the runner. Here comes Farah, I'm trying to intimidate girls before a race, but I'm very not intimidating. But know yourself and know that, keep pushing. I would definitely say keep pushing. It's hard, especially in terms of like sports right now. It's pretty hard, but I think that I could get there, where I want in terms of athletics, and I think I should just push myself, and especially in school too. Absorb as much as you can right now while you're still a child, and well, I'm still like basically a child. Absorb as much as you can. Go into college strong. Know history. I've always wanted to tell history as a story, you know what I'm saying? I got that this year with Mr. O'Shea's class. He's such a wonderful teacher. But he can tell history like a story. And just be cool, you know? Be cool. That's good.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's also some people's argument against stoicism. Like how Farah was also saying how sometimes she has to, like, I have to remind myself that, oh, I'm this person that did this for confidence. Because I know sometimes myself, like, I'll get hit with a wave of not shyness and not insecurity, but like melancholiness. And then I have to remind myself, like, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. Yeah. And that's why stoicism, which is like the practice of like being calm and composed, is sometimes argued against because we have emotions for a reason. And some people let their emotions dominate themselves too much, but it works for some people. Like some people need to get competitive in a certain setting to trigger them to do a certain thing, which is what I have a hard time doing because I decide to be so quote unquote emotionless. Yeah. So I lose the privilege of being able to turn on my aggression and perform in the sense of how I want to perform. And I know my brother's very good at that. He's a little bit emotional, but it works for him because in competition setting, he's able to
flip that switch. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong, especially to the boys listening to this, there's nothing wrong with being just a tad bit like vulnerable emotionally, because it's very attractive and it's very nice to see that boys can actually like feel, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to play it cool always, because that's weird. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You can have feelings.
Yeah, don't listen to those alpha people online saying be emotionless, but also at the same time, don't go too emotional and be crying all the time or complaining all the time.
Yeah.
If you could change it, change it. If you can't, you can't. But don't take that to the extreme, because there's a lot of stuff I know people say they can't change, but they do have an influence over. Because theoretically, you have a 64 in your class, you're like, I'm going to fail anyway. If you try hard enough and send enough emails, even though it's not conventional, like it's not laid out for you, you can still get it done.
Yeah.
And so, let's see. Describe a time you achieved success that you were striving for only to feel disappointed, like, oh, the climax wasn't what I wanted to be. Maybe you were on the top 10 in your school and you were like, oh, it's all right. Maybe you won a race and you were like, oh.
So I didn't feel like I was very...
You didn't get the high you wanted.
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, wait. Let's think of it academically. I've been so accustomed to like... Wait, that's not a good thing to say.
Do you want me to start?
Huh? Yeah, go for it.
All right, let me think. Well, it happens to me sometimes when I win things and there's no competition. I'm so much farther than the competition. I'm like, oh, it was all right. I expected it to be closer, or I expected not more people to be cheering for me, but I expected to do better. Even though you still did good, you're like, I expected to do much better, or whatever it may be. If everything doesn't align itself in the way I pictured it, sometimes my emotions aren't how I wanted them to be. And I'll forget that that's why. I'll think it's just like a random reason that my emotions aren't the way they are, which is an issue I've seen. It's like with the whole self-help thing, and not self-help, but wellness, self-care, whatever.
Yeah.
It makes it seem like every uncomfortable thing is just random and it's happening to you, when a lot of stress is because me personally, I wasn't paying attention during class, and now I have all this homework. And so we also have to take that into consideration, that we also have an influence on things. But anyway, I'll let you go. You want to read the question again?
It was...
You were working towards something, you got it, and you didn't feel how you wanted to feel.
I feel like I never really felt that, because I was a very celebratory person. After every single race, I would, no matter how bad I did, or no matter if it turned out very successfully, I'd just be proud of myself. Like, wow, I just did that. Yes, I could have done better, but I feel like that's part of. I don't know if it's part of my personality, but I think it's also like I grew up thinking like, good job, like you just did that. You should be happy for yourself, even if it's not that incredible.
So
Yeah, you should just
you
be
would
proud
say
of
celebrate
yourself.
the small wins.
So yes, definitely. That's a great way to put it. Even if it's not that incredible, you should still be proud of yourself and say like, oh, I just did that. Time to push myself more and push my limits.
And you have to force yourself because your brain doesn't know reality from fiction. Because you could be thinking about something and then experiencing it and you get the same emotions. So if you force yourself to be happy for something, I know whenever I would start something, I would like force myself to like congratulate myself, not with a cupcake, but like be like, okay, I did something that not a lot of other people do. But even if it's easy for you, just the fact that not a lot of other people do it means it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Definitely. Oh, well, like you could say that with sports. Come on, wrestling is so tough.
Yeah.
Track is tough. It's tough stuff.
So like, let's say theoretically you run 7 days a week. It's easy for you, it's fun for you, but it's not something a lot of people do, and you have to remind yourself like, okay, this is a good thing.
But then also you get into that trap of like, oh, there are people way better than me. There are people that are running twice a day. You can't think of that because my dad always said that there are always going to, as long as there are people in this world, there are always going to be people that are better than you, faster than you, prettier than you, smarter than you. But you can't let that overpower you because at the end of the day, you're focusing on how good you can be as a person. So it doesn't matter what she ran or how fast she did. I have certain goals in my mind. I'm going to reach those goals if I work hard enough for it. And it shouldn't matter what anyone else does.
And if you're having a hard time with comparison, something that worked for me in the beginning, I don't compare anymore for the most part. Something that worked for me in the beginning is I would assume everyone had like a score of 100. And if they were really attractive, I would assume that they were a 60 and they had 40 left. And then I had 60 intelligence and 40 looks. So I feel like everything balanced out at the end. It's a terrible way of thinking of things, but it's what worked for me to know that like everyone has their strong suits and everyone has their weaknesses for the most part.
Yeah.
All right. What book, TV show, YouTube channel, or anything of this sort had the greatest impact on you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or most impact on you? It could be negative too.
Book? Probably. Oh, yeah. There are a lot of shows that have a negative impact on me. I'll think of books later because I have a lot of good book suggestions as well. But TV show negative impact would probably be the Gilmore Girls. And that 70s show. We'll get into the Gilmore Girls first. I wanted to be Rory Gilmore for the longest time. Actually, no. I started watching the Gilmore Girls at the start of quarantine. But I was like, Rory, the intellectual. Farah, the intellectual. Makes sense, right? But you have to remember that it's a TV show and I'm not always going to find my Dean. Or she had like 6 boyfriends in the course of like 2 seasons. But I feel like her life was very well put together and that's just not reality. And she also had her strong suits and her weak suits, and I feel like you shouldn't compare yourself to a TV character.
Yeah.
But so I feel like that impacted me the most in a good way because I thought that I was like, oh, I have to read more, which was really good for me because I started reading so much more, especially this past few years. But negatively, it made me think.
All right, so we're back. So you were talking about Gilmore Girls,
Yeah.
and then you were talking about reading books.
Yeah, and so yeah, books are wonderful. I say that once you find the right book, you'll fall in love with books. But a show that impacted me
We're good.
a show that impacted me negatively was probably that 70s show because they were trying to make it take place in the 70s and I can't find an Eric to my Donna yet, if that makes sense to anyone, so it's fine. It's like kind of an unreal expectation. That's why I have a thing against high school sweethearts. I think they should be banned and not allowed to exist.
The idea of it or them themselves?
The idea and them, because they should like literally be eradicated because it's not fair. And also, Donna's too pretty. And Mila Kunis, it was a good show, but you can't let that stuff influence you because high school is not like that. It's more about the grades and less about the...
So, Button, do you think they would say eradicate all high average, upbeat, sports.
No, because we're good people. They don't deserve to show it off. I think that if you have a high school sweetheart, keep it to yourself, because for the single population, no one needs to see that. Thank you very much. Just kidding.
It's interesting how many other people, I'm not saying you, but would think the same about someone else. How they think they have it perfect and they think they have it perfect.
Yeah.
Someone will look at you and be like, oh, you have a high average, you're upbeat, you have clear skin, you play sports.
No one's perfect. Everyone has their problems. Everyone has their problems, and you'll never really know a person. Well, until you go on a long run with them, but you'll never really know a person and all their problems. So never think that anyone is perfect.
What would you recommend someone to read or watch to discover themselves or discover a new lesson per se?
What do I have in my bag? I have read a lot of short stories. My favorite book was probably, this is a really good book. It takes place in the 50s. If you're a young girl and you want to think of yourself as just read The Class Reunion by Rona Jaffe, I think. It's a wonderful book. You won't be able to put it down. Just classics. Oh, The Unbearable, I think it's called, Unbearable Lightness of Being, by that Czech author. He was a Czech author. Very good book. I started a notebook with my favorite quotes from that book, because that was a good book. That's an eye-opener. And you just copy those quotes, and then you live by them, and you're like, it talks so much about love and things like that. It's excellent book. And the classics, Tom Sawyer. What else is there? I don't know why I'm blanking, but there are one. I'll give you them a list, and I'll put links
Drop
in
it
the
in the description. Yeah, I would say, as cringy as writing a ton of one-liners are down, it helps you develop principles for yourself. Because I know for myself, whenever I would do something I didn't want to do or was nervous about doing, I had to remind myself, this isn't going to matter tomorrow. These people are going to forget whatever I did.
Oh, definitely.
Or if I'm trying to record a video, doing this before would have been embarrassing, but now I have to remember, this isn't even bad for anyone. I used to think people would look at me or whatever it may be, but that's not even the case. Many people, for lack of a better term, don't care about you. They care about themselves, and so it doesn't really even matter to them.
Definitely.
They're gonna forget it. Let me see. And you're gonna forget it too. So then if your card gets declined, I know I posted on my close friend story. Your card gets declined, or someone rejects you or tells you, I don't want to go on your podcast is terrible.
No.
That never happened to me. But just realize it strengthens your cringe muscles, and then you get better at doing what you would think is humiliating stuff, but is actually good stuff. Because let's say Farah didn't want to do this, and this helps somebody. She helps somebody by going out of her comfort zone, and then there's a ton of different scenarios similar to that.
Yeah, definitely.
But then if you could time travel to an earlier part of your life, when, where, and why would you even do it?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you have an answer to that?
I have an answer to that.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it would probably be, let me see. For the physical sense, I'm sure there's a lot of moments when you're I know a lot of people play sports and then they do a little bit worse than they should have, and then they would have won if they would have done a little bit better. So there was times I would have told myself in the wrestling room, go a little bit harder. You have 10% more until you pass out, go 9%. And because I know a lot of people, including myself, like to conserve themselves because they tell themselves oh, I don't want to get burnt out.
Yeah.
But we can't be afraid of lighting the match because for the fear of getting burnt out. Because I know I wouldn't go intense because I wouldn't want to, for whatever reason it may be. But do you have your answer now?
I think I'd probably go back to the 5th grade. I was trying to live life as one of those the Parent Trap, and I was trying to live in a movie. You know what I'm saying? I thought that I was very mentally forward for someone that young. I was thinking about things that it's just girls. I think they mature at a younger age.
Definitely.
But I think that you have to realize that not everyone's thinking the way that you are, and don't stress out about what people. Or so let's say you embarrassed yourself, that does not even matter. It's not going to matter.
And I have the same way because my dad, thank you, Dad, has introduced me to books that I guess 40-year-olds would read, and like there's a big gap between the age in which I read it and they read it.
Yeah.
And so it also is hard for me sometimes to talk to kids my age. I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid hasn't read. Oh my gosh, this kid talks so slow. Oh my gosh, he has no clue what I know, and everything he knows seems whatever. And so,
But they're still learning too.
of course. And so we all have different we all have different timelines as well. So that's also, we could go into another segment. Don't judge other people, because you were also probably at that point at one time. And they could just be a little bit behind you. I know a lot of people like to talk about, I guess, let's just say, how unfortunate a situation in a family is, and they like to say it's the family's fault. But then you have to remember, like, they maybe haven't had you yet. Like, you know, you're the turnkey in your family. Maybe they haven't had a Daniel, or maybe they haven't had a whatever. So you can't judge other people in that sense, because maybe they haven't read the book you read. Maybe no one's encouraged them like you've been encouraged, per se. And maybe they just had bad luck when it came to different stuff. Because if you think about it, like, you go to a bad elementary school, and then you're bad, and then you go to a bad middle school, and then you get into a bad high school, and then you can be so smart, but you don't have the motivation to read outside of college, and then you go to a bad college, and then it could just be little things that were out of your control that set you up for failure.
But also you have to think of it in another perspective. Like, let's say your parents pushed you and things happen like that. You also shouldn't just tell yourself, like, you can't justify your actions or where you are in life completely based on your environment, because a lot of times, let's say you couldn't control which middle school or which elementary school you go to. You can't really blame. A lot of times people try to blame things on things that they can't control, but you can't really do that, because you have access to a lot of resources. You could go to the library, but there you have to find a balance between just blaming everything else or your life situation, and also holding yourself accountable for your actions.
That was also what I was talking about with the stoicism. So the whole point of it is that if you can control it, change it. If you can't, it doesn't matter. We also have to remember there's a lot of stuff that we can change that we tell ourselves we can't change, because it's easier to tell ourselves we can't change it. And so if I'm at Brooklyn Tech and the teacher's being rude to me, I'm like, oh, this teacher hates me. Versus me telling the AP that we don't have a good relationship with this teacher and that we get stuff done in that sense. It's a little bit harder, but it works out for me in the end. And you don't want to look 5 years back and be like, oh, I should have done this. I know you probably looked at yourself a week ago like, oh, I should have started reading. And then you're going to look at yourself next week like, oh, I should have started reading. Then in a month, you're going to be like, I could have finished the book, but I haven't even opened it.
Definitely.
All right, let's go. All right, let's just go off of this. So how do you feel about this whole SAT reform and how they're like, no more SAT for some schools in equity sense?
I feel like there's definitely something that has to be said about it in terms of like equity, but I feel like when you look at the SAT, I feel like it also is it's a very learnable test, and in that, because it is a very learnable test and it's not just based on your natural intelligence, that's where you find the discrepancy. Because if it is a learnable test, then the divisions in grades will come from an unequal distribution of resources, like of prep resources. Growing up, I found that there were many opportunities for people like that are underprivileged to get access to free prep. But you don't know if I never have been to those prep centers, but you don't know if the quality is the same as those that you have to pay for. So there's definitely something that has to be said about that. I don't know enough about it to take a stance on it, but I feel like I just feel like the subject test especially, I'm not sure if it was the best idea to cancel them completely, because personally I thought of the subject tests as something that you learn by yourself. You buy the SAT like the chemistry subject test book, you study it from the book, and you could borrow the book from the library. I don't think that it would be that hard to study for anyone, but I feel like in the long term, studying for that test and preparing for it will give you so much knowledge, and I think that we're going to miss out on that, because if we don't study for these subject tests, we'll never have that information in our mind, because there's no need for it. There's no big test to take. But then you look at it from, you can make the mental health point of view. It's like, what's the point of all these standardized tests if they're going to hurt us? You also have to take into consideration that maybe they were created to help you learn more, to help you have that information stuck in your mind.
I also feel like they're important, but they lost the touch of like, to make sure you know your stuff. Now it's more for like, learn it to do good on the
do
test
and then
versus
forget. Yeah.
seeing how much you've learned and seeing how good you do on the test, like a diagnostic versus just a regular test. And so, I've also been to a dream program. It was like a program for brown and black kids. I didn't necessarily need it per se because I had other stuff going on as well, but I just wanted to see how it was.
Yeah.
And I would say a lot of those free programs and grant programs and government-run programs per se are not very good.
Yeah, definitely.
Plus, the environment isn't very good because that's just the sake of it. You're going to get with other kids that may not be as motivated, and then it hurts you versus going to a paid place where everybody's like, I paid for this, I got to focus.
You have to.
And so it's also a culture thing, and that's why the argument, like, Asians do better in some sense. Then we also have to remember, like, there's no free lunch. So if I study all day and get 100, what am I missing out on at the same time? So we also have to find a balance between, like, creativity and learning for a test. Because I feel like we're losing the creativity part by just doing good on tests and tests and tests.
And you see a lot of people like they called it the gifted kid burnout is what they said.
I think so. Yeah.
They studied for tests and studied. They know how to study, but do they retain any of that information? I don't know. There's definitely a big debate that has to go on about that. I feel like there are good reasons as to why it should be canceled, but also other perspectives that you have to take into consideration.
And so it's the same premise for SHSAT. If you're not in New York listening to this, SHSAT is these top 8 high schools, and you have to take a test to get in, and only the test matters. And this year, only like 8 black kids got in or something like that. It was a sad number. But the test is colorblind per se, but the access to prep and the access to the knowledge about the test is very different. And it's also a culture thing. And so what do you think would be a solution if the chancellor called you right now and said, Farah, how do we get more different kids to be admitted?
Well,
go into their schools, how would you encourage them? Because I know, like, it's not enticing to sit down for hours. And also the test has nothing to do with what you learn in school. So either you're super smart and you get in,
definitely.
or you're super strong-willed and prepped and to get in.
Definitely. I feel like it's my teacher, I think my chemistry teacher this year, she told us that when she was in high school, they gave her SAT classes within the school. So within the high school, a class a day was SAT prep. I feel like if they had that for the SHSAT, where they had this broad-based like distribution of just prep materials that are like a required course, an SHSAT prep course. But then there's like there's the the difference in quality, like you were saying, of these prep courses. But I feel like a solution could possibly be a more holistic approach to it. Maybe look at their transcript, because I definitely am adamant in the belief that yes, a transcript will reflect who you are as a student more than a one singular test.
It's true.
It's one test. It's hard. What if you were having a bad day?
Yeah, I agree. But I'm just from a different point of view, as someone with a transcript that doesn't feel like it reflects them. But at the same time, you do have more control over your transcript because you could do it over an extended period of time. You could email the teacher, and there's more leniency. Even though like a bad teacher is not good, it's subjective. So you're gonna have good and you're gonna have bad. Versus an SAT, which is objective. But
I don't know. It's weird. I feel like we shouldn't have to have these top 8 schools that are better than everyone else. I feel like you should have this you shouldn't have this variation. There shouldn't be this much of a disparity between
I would also say, like, the news has to stop saying Brooklyn Tech Stuyvesant Bronx Science. They forget that there's 8 specialized high schools, but the other 8 only want to take part if the big 3 also take part.
I think it's because the big 3 were there for the longest, right?
Yeah, but the big 3 is run by it's not run by New York City, it's run by Albany.
Really?
And so it's also everyone else's fault that they're not talking about. Like, it's this school's fault for not willing to be the pioneer in this because they want to wait for this school.
Yeah.
And so that's also in a lot of other aspects. But to get off this topic, what do you think is something Gen Z does right, and what do you think is something they do wrong?
Oh, okay. So I feel like something that they do wrong to start off is they're spending way too much time on social media. Come on, I was on TikTok for like 3 days. Like the first 3 days I got it, and I was already starting to feel that in myself because there were so many girls that were just like, they look perfect. Come on, especially good. Just imagine I was in the 6th grade seeing this. I had Musical.ly. Please don't try to find it. But it's sad because with this dream of being TikTok famous, like you just see these random girls on your For You page that they're working so hard and they put so many hours of their day just trying to make this one good video. I feel like they should open their eyes more to the future and realize that there are way more exciting things that they could be doing with their time.
And it's also what they're doing to get famous as well.
Oh.
So let's just say you're dancing with a lot of skin showing, let's just say, and you don't get famous. You lose. All you do is lose. All you do is you lose dignity,
There's no winning.
you lose respect, and I mean, there is still a chance that you get famous, but it really depends on how you were raised or what your goal is.
I just also want to know what the appeal is. Like, okay, yes, you get famous. Do you really want to be remembered 30 years from now as that girl that got famous from TikTok, like from a one video, or would you rather do something very influential in your life? I feel like even if you were less famous for something incredible, it's better than being very famous for something.
I agree with you, but what if they said they wanted to get money so they could do something?
Really?
What if they said that? What if they said they wanted to get money so they could fund Farah's project?
Oh, there are better ways to get money than that, I think. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I do feel like other girls would be insecure seeing the other girls, and the other guys would be like, it wouldn't even be fair to the girls at the end of the day. Like, the guys, like, it's not good because they get tempted the whole time. I'm not going to elaborate. But at the same time, like, guys think this is what girls should look like, and then girls think this is what girls should look like. And then so, like, 90% of the girls, like, have, like, a false view of how
and then they come
are.
to tech and are disappointed.
Yeah, and then they come to tech, and then they look like a TikTok girl. That's a little rude. But what do you think they get right?
What?
No,
What
nothing.
did you
I didn't
say?
say.
Wait, what?
What do you think Gen Z gets
They
right?
did right? Oh, was the ad how many advocates we have for social justice issues. It's just so wonderful to see so many people passionate about things like this. I thought back in the 6th grade when I was like a climate reality leader, I was so ready. I was going to be the next Greta Thunberg, and then I find so many people that are just so active, and I was like, wow, this is really good. When I was young, no one knew what climate change, like no one really cared.
Yeah.
Now when they're exposed to social media, they're exposed to these world problems, and you find a lot of people, I don't know if it's fake caring, maybe they're just posting it because everyone else is posting it, but I do genuinely believe that a lot of people are more active in social justice issues. It's incredible. It's very nice.
I think I know your answer already, but what's more important, solving it or bringing awareness?
Huh?
What's more important, solving the issue or bringing awareness to it?
Oh, definitely solving. You could post all you want, but if you don't do anything to
Oh, that's not the answer I expected. I expected
Really?
Awareness is just as important, something along those lines.
awareness is important. It's yeah, come on. Like if you look at but action speaks louder than
Okay, so you got that down. All right, let me see another
It's
question.
hard though because a lot of people don't know what to do, especially like climate justice issues. They're like, yes, I want to be an advocate.
Just throw away plastic straws or something along those lines.
It's a genuine issue. Yes, you want to do something, but how do I act?
Yeah, it's like the business people online. I was gonna write about that in my college essay, but now I'm not. It's like they always tell you do something, do this, execute.
What are you
What
gonna
do you do it on?
What are you gonna do?
And then they also don't want to give you free ideas because any good idea they're not gonna share with you.
Definitely.
And so it's also you have to brainstorm. And so that's how you may think I started a few things. Whoever's listening to this, and I'm not gonna elaborate, but the way I found out is just brainstorming, like being bored on purpose to come up with ideas.
And look at programs. So if you're if you want to be a climate reality leader, go join Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Corporation. It's beautiful. It's a great organization. Yeah.
Let me see what other questions I have. So we're gonna wrap this up in a second, and all right. So this is a question you came up with. How do you think our generation will be remembered by?
Oh, I did come up with that. How do you think it's very hard. It's very hard because when I was thinking of that, I was thinking like, wow, we had just learned about women's liberation in the 50s in history class, and I was like, what a time to be alive. What an incredible time to be a woman. Well, not incredible. Like, it was just good because, like, it was just a very strong support system. I feel like there's so much going on now. You hear about all these rallies and things like that. It's like, we're going to be remembered for pushing social limits, for trying to get things done as fast as we possibly can. But also they're missing out on that. We're also going to be remembered for all the mental health issues that our generation has, especially with social media. And it's fine. It's like you bring awareness to it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just hope that the good things that the good things will outweigh the bad things.
Yeah. To go into another question to get close to wrapping it up.
Yeah.
How do you think you could make a community's day better? Compliments, favors, like you complimenting someone, them complimenting someone else, them complimenting someone else.
I feel like if they're not rooted in some genuine feeling, compliments could be empty and they might not be the way to go. Maybe, but I think that just being good people. There's even if you're having a horrible day.
What's a good person?
Huh?
Who's a good person? What constitutes a good person?
If you're having a really bad day and everything feels so wrong and you're not in a good mood, just to still be able to smile at someone and say, hey, like, how was your day, whatever. I feel like girls do this way better than boys do. They're able to like suppress their bad emotions and anything that's going on in their life and still show a good face and just be a good person. I feel like you encounter so many people that are like, if they're annoyed or they're mad, they have to let the whole world know that they're mad, and then they give you an attitude. And I'm like, and then it affects your reputation or how people view you, because it's like, wow, sorry, I didn't do anything wrong, but you have to be mean to me for no reason. But I feel like just being able to control your emotions a little more, not to say you should suppress anything. If you're upset, go talk to your friends and let it all out. Just, you don't have to reflect that negativity on someone that doesn't deserve it, because that'll ruin their day and that'll make you feel like a worse person.
All right, so I'd like to end this off with make up your own quote. So your own quote to help other people your age, I guess, because you're in a position in which I'm sure other people wouldn't mind being in from the surface level.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would you tell people to stay focused, get good grades, do good in this, do good in that?
I would definitely...
A one-liner, just even if you didn't make it up.
Okay.
Or even if it's just for confidence, even if it's just for self-care. Like, I would say nobody cares about it.
Oh.
And so in the sense, like, oh, wait, so I could do that and nobody's going to judge me.
Yeah, I would say, can I do two? Okay. First, don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. It's not a good look on anyone. And second is just tell yourself, especially if you're a girl or a guy, it doesn't matter, that you're charming. Charming is a beautiful adjective. You're poised. You're poised. That means you're strong, you're confident in yourself, and you are, what was it? Charming, poised, and oh, there was one that I used to tell myself every morning. Charming, poised, and an intellectual. You're smart. You have to know that. And don't let anyone destroy that. You're a good person.
So even if you have to tell yourself in the mirror that you're charming and intellectual
and poised.
So I guess we'll end it off here. Thank you for being a guest.
No problem.
I hope you guys learned a thing or two from Farah.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye.
This is an abrupt ending, but goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the OK Zoomer podcast by Ethan Castro.